I wanted to do a little follow-up video on some of the changes I made to my yaw tuning. The main thing that I did was I changed the yaw jump prevention limit from 250 to 300. I had previously lowered that value because I was practicing some pirouettes, some really fast yaw spins, and I was getting some really bad yaw jump at the end. But uh, I think that overall having that number lower makes the rest of my flight worse. And so I think I'm just going to have to not do pirouettes with this particular copter in order to, I'm not going to give up good flight performance most of the time in order to be able to pull off that one move. So I changed yaw jump prevention limit. I also, in response to a suggestion on the forum, I reduced my D gain from about, I think it was 55, and now it's at about 30 or 35. I think that was too much of a change because if we look at the D term, and you can just look at it throughout this example if you want to, the D term is very small. It's barely getting off the axis at all. It's barely doing a thing. So I think I need to put that D term back up. The other thing I've done is I have reduced my D-term cut hertz soft filter. I was filtering at, I believe it was either 15 or 16 hertz. And I've had that value anywhere from like 12 to 15 or 16 at various times. And as I was looking at the traces I posted last time, I was like, if this was anybody else's trace, I'd be telling them that number needed to be a lot lower. For some reason, I had some mental block where I didn't want to get it down as any lower than like 12. So I've taken it down to about, I think it's at 10 right now. So my D trace should look a lot smoother as well. Okay, so let's take a look at RC command and gyro and see how the copter is responding to my inputs. And I've just done in this flight a bunch of right turns. And if we look here, I begin to command a right turn. The RC command goes below the axis. The gyro goes below the axis. Gyro is roughly tracking RC command. That's what we want to see. And as the turn ends and RC command goes back to 0, the gyro also goes back to 0 more or less without overshooting. That's good. That's what I wanted to fix the last time. Again here, RC command goes negative, gyro goes negative, and as RC command returns to 0, we see just the tiniest bit of overshoot, but not very much at all. You'd be hard pressed to notice that while you were flying. Again, let's see if I got another one. RC command goes negative, gyro goes negative, returns to the ending the turn, returns to 0. The tiniest bit of overshoot, not bad though. I think overall we can say that the situation has greatly improved, and subjectively it also feels that way from flight. So let's take a look at the PID values then and see what they're doing. Here is roughly the beginning of the turn. And we can see that at the beginning of the turn, the blue line, which is the PID sum, goes negative. It's pushing us into the turn. That's what we want. That's what we want to see. And after this period about here, we can see that the p-value goes back very close to the axis for a period, maybe from about here to about here. P-value is very close to 0. And what that means is that at this moment, the angular rate of change is very close to what is being commanded. So we're moving into the turn as fast as we should be. The I term is still negative. It's carrying some accrued error. There was time in the past when we did not turn fast enough. So the I term is still saying push faster into the turn right faster. The P term is saying right now we're turning right about as fast as we need to. The I term is saying yeah, but previously we weren't turning fast enough, so keep turning faster. As we continue to watch, the P term does go positive. It's a very different situation than we saw previously. Previously, the P term pushed very hard negative and then quickly swung around and was pushing positive again. And in this case, it's a little more gradual. So we're closer to the 0 axis more of the time. And that generally, the closer the p-value is to 0, the more the copter is doing exactly what it's commanded to do. So that's a good thing. If I see wild swings from low to high to low to high, that's not ideal. I don't want to see that under as many flight conditions. The less I see that, the better. Also notice that the P term goes positive starting about here, and the PID sum goes positive very shortly thereafter. And in the previous example, we saw a longer delay there. because the I term had a much larger value, a larger negative value, and it held the PID sum negative for a longer period of time. Now, whether that's good or bad just depends. The more P dominates your PID sum and the less I dominates your PID sum, the more the PID sum is going to sort of hop around in response to changing conditions. So you could think of P as responding to conditions right now and I as taking sort of a bigger picture, longer term perspective. And the balance between them dictates how much the PID sum is going to either be responding to conditions right now, in which case you would not have good heading hold, because heading hold requires kind of a big picture perspective, or responding to conditions over time if I dominates, in which case you'd have great heading hold, but you wouldn't be as sort of agile or responsive, and you'd have issues where like you'd finish a turn, but the copter would keep turning. Okay, so in this case, the problem that we had was that we had not enough responsiveness to current conditions and basically too much I-term influence. So the fact that we see less delay between the PID sum going positive and the P term going positive and the PID sum going positive means that our changes have had the desired effect. Now PID sum is positive and I term also eventually goes positive. What that means is that the copter is turning too fast, because we note that the RC command and gyro are negative. That's commanding a right turn. PID sum, P term, and I term are positive. That's commanding left turn, or not just turn left, but don't turn right so fast. Turn right slower. So they're counteracting each other. It means it's turning too fast for the commanded rate, as determined by the stick position. Okay. As we start to end the turn and the stick returns to center, P goes back to 0, meaning again the angular rate is about correct, and that's good. That's good. I term continues to push against the move, and here the stick is at 0. And notice by this point the stick is at 0. The turn has basically ended. Notice that the I term is still pushing us to the left, and the P term is pushing us to the right. And the net result is actually that as the move ends, the PID sum roughly is at 0. So the stick's at 0 and the PID sum is at 0, and that's actually that's kind of what we want. I mean, it felt right when I was flying it, and it looks right on the graphs too. There's a little bit more to it. The I term takes a while to finish zeroing out. How long does it take here? I end the move at 45.6, and I term zeroes out at 46.8, so about 1.2 seconds, which is really an eternity. But if we look at the PID sum, notice that the PID sum is more or less hanging out around the axis that whole time. So this carried over I term value, for whatever reason, it seems like it's being canceled out by this P value, and the result is that at the moment that we intend to end the turn ends. I still think there's a little bit more refinement that could be done here, but I feel like this is getting us in the right direction. So just to recap, the only thing I really did here was I increased my yaw jump prevention limit, which allows the PID sum to go to larger values, basically giving the PID loop more authority to command the copter in response to changing conditions. I'm curious what the effect would be of changing my yaw P value as well. We shall see. Thank you. Bye-bye.